Something that I want to talk about today is really far away from my normal programming. I'm normally talking about all things acting, but I really want to talk about domestic violence today.
Let's give things up.
This year is really about ascension for me. A part of ascension, I think, is about taking off masks. It's about truth seeking and not just out in the world, like inside of yourself. You gotta leave the baggage behind. And that's what this video is going to be for me. And what has really brought me to this place is the lack of sensitivity that I experienced recently with not only men in my own family, but women that I adore, mentors, best friends. I'm talking about best friends from like 14, siblings, cousins. The level of insensitivity has literally shattered my heart into pieces. Again, a part of ascension is letting go and taking off the mask, because you can't rise when you're weighted down. And this goes to anyone that is listening, that is preparing for ascension or is currently ascending. I've been experiencing domestic violence since I was like 21 years old. 21, 22 is when it first started. This most recent event, I could have quite literally lost my life. And so I'm thankful to God that I'm even sitting here and that I can speak out about this, because I know I'm not the only one. The isolation that I endured and the insensitivity that I endured by lovers and friends, it made me turn inward. And it made me say to myself, have I ever in my life been insensitive to a woman or a sister friend who was suffering through domestic violence? And the answer was so alarming, because it was yes, I have. Oh, she's gonna go back in 2 weeks. What did she do? What did she say? And this monster of shame started to just dance around me. And I mean deep shame. I did it to my own mother. I did it to my own mother. I minimized what she survived. I minimized the trauma that she had to climb out of. You got to be careful what you put your mouth on. Don't ask the universe. I don't know how she don't ask the universe that. I don't know how she deals with that. And it couldn't be me, and I could never. And I found myself in very similar situations. I'm sorry to all of my friends that I've done this to, both verbally or non-verbally, or even internally. I'm sorry for my thoughts about this subject matter. I'm sorry to myself for enduring this in silence for so long. And I never called the police, ever. I never called the police. I had a friend one time, I had called her, and I was like, something had happened. And I called her and I was like, can you come get me? Like, I'm leaving, I'm going back to my sister's, or whatever I was saying. And her question to me was, if I come get you, are you going to go back? And this really is a segue into one of the most powerful aspects of why domestic violence is even capable. Yes, she's going to go back. Yes. Because according to the Bureau of Justice statistics, it takes 7 times for a survivor to leave a domestic violence situation successfully. 7 times. Over 50% of domestic violence cases go unreported. Black women are 3 times more likely to be murdered by men than white women. Globally, intimate partners are responsible for 38% of the murders of women. In domestic violence homicides, if there's a gun in the house, women are 6 times more likely to die by it. 6 times. Here are the numbers. Here's the statistical data that is showing you that there is quite literally a war on women. I'm not using trending jargon. I'm not using catchphrases. I'm not trying to stay on trend. I'm talking to y'all about something that I quite literally survived. I have text messages. I have proof. I have videos. I have other women confirming that they saw these acts. And yet still I am faced with insensitivity by my own loved ones, by my best friends, by my parents. This shit is vicious. In the silence is the very thread of the sheet that is suffocating us. Martin Luther King said the Vietnam War was happening and Black Americans were finding out to the degree of how heinous America was acting in this war. And I was reading in a pamphlet, Martin Luther King said, there comes a time in history where silence is betrayal. There comes a time in history where silence is betrayal. You cannot absent-mindedly sit by and sit on the dock of the bay and watch the tide go by as women are being murdered by men who look and sound just like you. 34% of women are murdered in domestic violence situations every year in the US. 34%, yet half of all domestic violence cases go unreported. What is the missing piece? The missing piece to the puzzle is silence. If you plug in the fact that so many of us are suffering in silence, you plug in why the rates are so high. Why 34% of women, your first cousins, your sisters, your mothers, your grandmothers, the teachers that give you the answers to the test, your homies on the block that bring you a platter, the girls who blow dry your hair and cornrow your braids. These are the women. These are the 34%. They aren't women that you don't know. They aren't women that you aren't connected to. Oh, but she's going to go back and she's going to go back according to statistics at least 7 times. So get ready for the ride, because this has become a part of our society. And we all have to play our part in eradicating this from being something that is colloquial. Because it's not colloquial and it's not normal, and we should quite literally be enraged. And if you're not enraged, even after hearing the data, hearing my experiences, hearing how it's not people that you don't know, then do some inner work, because that's what patriarchy does. That's what toxic masculinity is. It separates you from humanity. It separates you from the idea of being impacted by the way in which the person to the left and to the right of you is experiencing life. Individualism is a cancer. You think you're not affected, but you are, because there comes a time in history where silence is betrayal. It's betrayal of your unborn daughters. Again, it's betrayal of your sisters. It's betrayal of the women that you quite literally would not be where you are without. This is a plea to the lover boys. This is a plea to the men's men. This is a cry out for help on behalf of every single survivor of domestic violence. And may the non-survivors, may their souls rest in peace with our outrage. This is not poetic. This is not India giving a performance. This is the rawest I'm ever going to be with y'all. I promise you. And it's just going to get more raw and more real and more honest. Because I'm so tired of living a lie. I'm so tired of pretending like I'm okay when I'm not. The ramifications of betrayal are endless. Endless. It goes on and on and on, and you start not to trust yourself. You start to turn, and it makes you start to say, is this real? Did this really happen? I still don't completely trust what I'm feeling. It's a lonely road. It is a lonely, lonely road. And while we think we aren't affected by it, we are. Because I just told you, 50% of them are unreported. 1 out of 4 women in America right now are dealing with domestic violence. You know somebody that is suffering from it. From violent, vicious acts by lovers, by men who we thought we could trust. And I know that the ramifications of slavery are real. And so by no means do I want to be insensitive toward Black men. But if you have issues with rage, get an anger management class, get some therapy. Don't have a gun in your home. Don't put yourself in situations where you could harm someone. Figure out in your mind why you think it's okay to abuse women. Do the internal work. Figure out the backstory. Maybe you saw this as a kid. Maybe you heard it in music. Maybe it's an inner value that you have where you really think you can, because a woman is in a relationship with you, you really think you have access to certain things or she should do certain things. Really do the inner work so that we can repair the relationship between women and men, because it needs repairing. But I can tell you one thing, domestic violence is not going to stop. The numbers are going to continue to climb if we continue to suffer in silence. Speak out. If you are currently going through domestic violence, there are numbers, there are hotlines, there are private organizations, there are government organizations, there are shelters. The idea that you are alone is an illusion. That your violator lives and thrives on. The idea that you are alone is an illusion. First of all, God would never forsake you, ever. and there is a way out. I promise you that. This segment is really from the bottom of my heart. This is an apology letter to the 23-year-old me who endured this and who really thought that she was a patriarch for Black men by suffering in silence, by enduring until I could endure no more, by literally putting my life on the line. To protect a person's image or the idea of him. This is an apology letter to myself. This is me coming out, and this is me giving anyone who is going through this the strength to come out. You are never, ever, ever, ever alone. Ever. Write it on a sticky note. Write it in your journal. Write it wherever the fuck you need to write it. But you are never alone. And you have what it takes to get out. 3 kids in, 4 kids in, no job, whatever. Your grandfather, your grandmother, your ancestors have gotten it out the mud, and so can you. So can you. And that is my promise to you. I assure you. You are never alone. Here is to day 1 of eradicating the normalcy of domestic violence in our hearts is where we need to start it first. In our hearts, in our minds, in our tongues, in the way we speak of women, in the things that we accept about women, in the treatment of women when others are around us. This is day 1. If you have made it this far, thank you for watching. I pray that the words that I have shared and the experiences that I have shared do not fall on deaf ears. It is my wish that this information reaches the masses and that it catapults a spirit of change in all of us. Here's to day 1 of healing, of forgiving, and of moving forward, and of ascension.